Welcome to People in the Know. Do I ever have a special guest for you today? I'm Margi Kyle, and with me is Daniel Palmer. Daniel, you've got a story to tell that only you can tell.
And I've only got 10 minutes to tell it, so this will be
I
an
know.
interesting.
This will be a good quiz.
Yeah, it will be, Chris. Absolutely, for sure. Thank you so much for inviting me on your show. It is quite the honor. And actually, before I start, Margie, if you don't mind me telling everybody, you actually attended our first Purple Spaces champion training in Charlotte on Thursday of last week.
Yes, I did.
You are a Purple Space champion, so congratulations and thank you so much for doing that. It was quite the event, quite the day.
I loved every minute of it, and I'm so sorry that we have to have champions. Tell
Yes,
me a little bit about how you got started.
definitely. So, it's funny. We have this expression at Purple Spaces. Certainly, it's something that I've coined, and it's pain to purpose. We turned our pain into a very purposeful endeavor, which is Purple Spaces. And until you can understand the purpose, you need to understand a little bit the pain. So I'm going to give you some of my very personal, I suppose, story that leads us into Purple Spaces, if that's all right. I don't mind saying, in fact, I'm a big advocate for saying that I am a survivor of domestic abuse. And I grew up in a home that on the outside looked absolutely perfect. In fact, all my friends wanted to live and visit my house, the same with my sisters. But our normal life was not perfect at all. In fact, we, and that's myself, my sister, and my mother, lived with a very violent monster. I would go as far as to say a genius in the application of coercive control. Our father, my father. And whilst through my childhood and my adolescence, witnessed different acts of domestic abuse towards each of us, it wasn't until I was 45, and I'm 48 now, so that tells you how recently it was, and I finally got free from my abuser, that the real extent of the abuse faced by the three of us became very clear. Domestic abuse victims, and domestic abuse, by the way, and domestic violence mean exactly the same thing. I just use the term domestic abuse. But domestic abuse victims typically suffer in total isolation because their abuser wants them to be isolated. However, domestic abuse situations never affect one person. That was our case for sure. It has tentacles that go way beyond the immediate abuse that anybody is suffering. You know, my mother always says, you never know what goes on
Behind closed doors.
Behind closed doors. Do you know, and as a kid, I never got that. I said it all the time. I never understood it, and I certainly never understood it in application to my own situation. I was just living my normal, as violent and as difficult as it was at times. But it was and it is such a true expression. But what we had were closed doors behind closed doors that none of us knew about, or at least were able to acknowledge, even to ourselves. We were totally under our abuser's control, and he exerted every aspect of domestic abuse upon us. That would be physical, sexual, financial, emotional, and even stalking and harassment. Stalking one of my girlfriends. It is, you know, as you look back on it, it's quite interesting and incredible as we do the Purple Spaces work. Just kind of what we really went through as a unit, I suppose, but the three of us as victims. So for all three of us, though, when the domino started to fall, so I was the first domino, and then my sister, and then my mum, in terms of getting out from our abuser, it actually meant that we learnt what our abuser had done to each of us. And that was, for me, certainly at times, much harder to process than dealing with my own trauma. You know, understanding what my sister went through, and I'm still learning to this day some of the things that my mother went through. And each of us has, you know, recalls and memories that come up that we didn't have before about our situations. And we're still going through that today. Being a survivor never ends. You're always on that journey, and it's an incredible journey. And how I got to that point, actually, is the start of the Purple Spaces story.
So it is a 501c3.
Correct, which is a non-profit 501c3, yes. And we have three missions, and I'll tell you those right now so I don't forget. One is to create champions within businesses, as you now are, or organizations.
Yeah.
Second is so we charge for that training, but part of the funding that we take in goes then to the local support agencies. So in the Charlotte area, that's Safe Alliance. And we do work in other areas and in other countries as well. Then the third and final part of that is we have a scholarship to help young individuals, young survivors, get to college and really make the most of the opportunities they have in their future. Stuff that I didn't have and that my sister didn't have. We really want to pay it forward and get those individuals moving forward and being as successful as they can.
That is amazing. How do people get a hold of you?
So our website is purplespaces.org. So purple, the word purple, the color, spaces with an S on the end.org. And all of the details are there in terms of our phone numbers and email addresses.
And it's very intense too.
Yeah. So the training, so I disclosed to a colleague at work. And that experience, when that colleague said to me 3 hours after listening to my monologue of all the stuff that I could spew out at that time, because I'd never done it before, I'd never spoken to anybody about it at all. After I disclosed to that person for that 3-hour monologue of just spewing out information that I'd never talked to anybody about before, they simply said to me that I should talk to someone. They didn't know who. I certainly didn't know who. So I called my sister. And that was the start of Purple Spaces. Had the person I disclosed to, the work colleague I disclosed to, had they been a trained champion, they would have known how to listen, how to respond properly, because that first conversation with the victim is very, very, very important. But then also what resources are available for me in the local area. And that's really important. And that is the basis of Purple Spaces. So the training, as you said, can be intense, yes, because for the first half of the day, we talk about what domestic abuse is, and we pull no punches. We tell survivor stories. Some are ours, some are others that have documented really interesting and very brave stories of their own. We show those so that anybody sitting in that training who has volunteered to be a champion from a business or an organization, we know if they can listen to us and they can hear those stories, that they can effectively listen and support a victim at work. Sometimes that might just be a conversation with no action. Sometimes that might be a call for help. Yeah. And they can identify that and then guide them to the relevant support. We're not training social workers or advocates.
Right.
Simply, which is really important. We're not taking that away. And these are volunteers from organizations that get involved with us. And they get to have a proper conversation that is not an inappropriate amount of time, doesn't take away from the day completely, doesn't ruin work productivity or any of those things. But then at the end of that, when the victim is ready, they can guide them, and only when the victim is ready, they can guide them to the appropriate services in the local area.
I cannot even imagine what you have been through. But again, I love your phrase, taking pain and turning it into a purpose. You have done a beautiful job, and look at all the people you're helping.
Do you know we have 110 champions globally right now, which
that
I'm
is
really proud of. Unbelievably
Yes.
proud of. We did our first training sessions in the US last week. We now have 11 champions in the US, of which you are one. Very proud of that too.
Proud to be.
Yeah, it's great. And it's a really good start for us. We had some really good organizations join. So that's fantastic. So we have our next training sessions in Charlotte are in May. So we're looking for organizations now. And I say organizations, and it really can be I don't say businesses for a reason. Yes, businesses can be involved. Churches, hospitals, schools. We have lots of schools on the program, actually. Line dancing groups. It doesn't matter, any organization. Anybody where you talk to other people that might be in a position to need to talk to you about their
And you never know, do you?
And you never know, because 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men suffer domestic abuse. And that's the most incredible stat. It's everywhere. I'm going to make a comparison to that stat and why businesses should get involved. Other than the moral right that I wish they could say, yes, please get involved. I'll tell you why businesses should get involved. not only does it affect 1 in 3 and 1 in 4 women and men of your workforce, which is, think about that. That is such an incredible number, because we in this country, and this is absolutely right, we have laws to protect us from fire, right? Workplace fire incidents. So we have very strong laws. You have to plan. You have to have, extinguishers and all the different things you need, smoke alarms. Workplace fire affects 1 in 1,500 North Carolinians every year.
Wow.
Right. Shocked me, that number, because 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men suffer domestic abuse. And of those, 75% say they continue to be harassed at work. 90% say it massively affects their ability to work, so their productivity. 50% of them say they take unplanned time off from work. And all of that combined costs North Carolina businesses about $500 million every year.
Oh my.
So for that reason alone, it's good for businesses to get involved.
Yeah.
Because if you can help somebody get through this, you can reduce your own turnover, increase loyalty, and there are such great benefits, and just be a really good business all at the same time.
Thank you so much for all you're doing. We could talk for hours. I
We
know
could.
we could. And we have.
Yeah, that's true.
Please go to the website at
Yeah,
purplespaces.org. And Daniel, thank you for all you're doing. You are making a huge difference in so many lives.
Thank you. I really
Thank
appreciate you
you.
saying that. Thank you.